Hey everybody, welcome back to my Pink Room of Doom. As always, I hope you're doing well today. In this video, we're going to be answering a question posed by one of my lovely viewers. So, this is a really good question. It's pretty specific, but I feel like a lot of people generally struggle with this kind of debate, right? And as you'll see, it's asked on my 56 Les Paul Gold Top video. So let's go ahead and take a look at the comment. It comes from user Louis Ralda, and he asks, I'm about to buy my first Epiphone. Please help me. This one, 56 Gold Top, or a Les Paul Standard Plus Top Pro. Any suggestions? So Louis, as I said, great question. Thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting. But I felt like it would do more justice to get on here and kind of explain the differences a little bit more. So he's essentially asking, should I get the 56 Gold Top or should I get a Standard Plus Top Pro? Now, we're gonna kind of cut it down to just a standard, right? Because the only difference between a standard and a Plus Top Pro is literally the top. One might have more of a flame top, one might be a plain top, but at the end of the day, they're all gonna kind of play and sound the same, right? The top's not gonna make a difference. So realistically here, we're looking at 56 Pro or Standard. Which one do you go for? Now, while I no longer own the Gold Top, I do own a variant of that, which is fairly similar. And while I don't own a Standard with humbuckers, I do own another guitar that is pretty similar, and I think will play fairly closely as what a Standard would play as. So I'm gonna grab both the guitars, I'm gonna show you, and then we're gonna talk about the differences and similarities, and maybe it'll help you decide if you're also struggling with this dilemma. So here are the two guitars that we're gonna take a look at. So a couple of things before we get started. This model here is not the Gold Top, obviously. I no longer have the Gold Top, but in the sense of playability and sound, this is gonna sound pretty similar. Same for this one. This is not a Standard, this is a custom classic, but it's gonna represent how a Standard would play and sound for the most part, right? So just a little bit of a disclaimer if you start to notice things are a little different. Realistically, the only difference that a Standard's not gonna have is it's not gonna have the double bound body. It's obviously not gonna be yellow. Again, this is a different type of model. And the headstock is not gonna have this, in this case, a SG crown, or it's not gonna have the custom diamond on it. It's gonna look like that. So those aside, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the similarities and everything that you'll start to see between these two models, as well as some of the differences. So they're both Les Pauls through and through, right? Single cut design, three-way switch, 2-volume, 2-tone, bridge, tailpiece, all that kind of good stuff. Generally speaking, if you're looking at the 56 model versus, you know, the Standard Plus Top Pro, they don't make the Plus Top Pros anymore. You're gonna be looking at rosewood fingerboards. They're both gonna have rosewood fingerboards, 22 frets, same scale length, all that stuff, with the trapezoid inlays. All kind of similar, right? It all sounds the same. You can kind of understand why you would be having this problem. But hold your horses. There are two main differences that I think you can take away from this video that will kind of hinder your decision making or maybe affect your playing if you pick the wrong one. And that is the neck shape and the pickups. Let's start with the neck shape. So for the 56, it's gonna be modeled after a 50s Les Paul, which have thick baseball style necks, right? People say baseball bat necks. They're not kidding. This is a fairly thick neck. You need to have pretty big hands to play it comfortably. That's kind of my opinion. I'm not gonna say people with small hands couldn't play one of these comfortably, but it's definitely gonna make it a little harder because you have to just have that bigger hand to grip the neck, right? Whereas with what would be the Standard here, it's got a thin 60s slim taper neck. So it's much thinner. So it feels more comfortable for most people. A lot of people prefer the thick neck, but generally speaking, I think a lot of people are gonna prefer the 60s slim taper neck, especially for beginners, you know, maybe someone that's never played a Les Paul, something like that. Now, let's talk about the pickups in both of these guitars. So in the 56, you're gonna see that we have two P90 pickups. These are Epiphone P90 Pro pickups, and if you want more information on either one of these guitars, really, I have videos on both of them. But with the P90 sound, it's essentially a single coil, right? It's just a really fat single coil. It's like an overwound single coil, I guess is how you could describe it. I don't really know how the pickups work. I know they're magnets and wires and all that kind of good stuff, and they make noise. But there's something special about a P90. If you've never heard one, you've never played one, I highly suggest getting one in your hands and playing it immediately for you to fall in love with the sound of P90. Or if you want a good representation of what P90s sound like, go listen to Jared James Nichols. I highly recommend that. That can make a P90 scream. But anyway, P90s, you know, they're synonymous with punk rock, you know, stuff like that. They make a lot of noise, right? They're not quiet pickups. You can get quiet, like noiseless P90s, but they're pretty loud. They got a lot of that 60 cycle hum going on because, again, at the end of the day, they are just single coil pickups, but they're really fat. They got this kind of nasally sound to them, especially in the middle position. But man, they deliver a heck of a punch. They'll cut through any mix with ease, and a P90 sound, you just can't beat it. Now, as for a humbucker, I think everybody is a little more familiar with a humbucker sound. The humbucker is an undeniable classic. It cancels the hum, bucks the hum. That's why it's called a humbucker. So when you plug it in, you're not going to get a lot of noise. You're not going to get that 60 cycle hum as much because they are wound in such a way where it cancels out the hum. With a humbucker, you're going to get a much fatter tone. It's going to be much rounder. It's going to be fuller than, say, a P90. I'm not going to say it's going to cut as much, but it's definitely going to sound different than a P90 would. You think of really any rock icon that plays a Les Paul or really any guitar in a heavier scene, you're gonna be talking about humbuckers. So you might ask, is that to say that you can't be a metal player or a rock player and play with P90s? Well, no. As I mentioned before, these are pretty synonymous with punk rock. And I actually have a video where I showed that you absolutely can play metal on P90s. If you want to go check that out, hey, it's there. But I think for the most part, you're gonna go with the humbuckers. You're probably gonna go with the slim neck. At the end of the day, it's just personal preference. As cliche as it sounds, the best way to know what's right for you is to just get out there if you can and find what you're looking at and just play it, you know? Get your hands on it, see if it's comfortable in the hands, on the neck, see if it sounds right to you, see if you can get the tones that you're chasing out of it, and if it is, pull the trigger on it, get it, take it. I mean, don't take it, buy it, but you know what I mean. So, which one's right for you? Only you have the answer to that. But if I had to give you any kind of suggestion, there are wise words once spoken in a taco commercial. ¿Por qué no los dos? And I think that holds true here.